Hi, and thanks for watching and listening. Today I want to tell you about Ralph. He moved on to heaven at the age of 87 just last year. And with Ralph, I'm going to tell you about Larry. He was a young man when I knew him, and I haven't seen him in 40 years or more. But they're both very much part of the story. Ralph showed up in my home church when I was fairly young. He became a big part of things. He had a personality bigger than life. He was fairly loud. He was always brimming with enthusiasm. He was the first person I ever knew who could share the gospel of Jesus Christ with anyone, anytime, and any place. He was so outspoken, he could come off different ways. He was trained in an interesting technique for evangelism, a way to present the Word of God. And he set up an evening class for some of us to learn it. So I signed up, and I attended, and I learned it. When I got there, I found out it was a short class. Then we went out in pairs to visit people in their homes. Now, we had a list of names, and that was back in the day when people were willing to have people come into their home that they didn't know and sit down and visit with them. So, Ralph gave me Larry, or rather, I was a teenager. He gave me to Larry. Larry was our short-term youth minister. So, first night we had doors slammed and people that just didn't really want to visit with us. The next time we went out, though, again with Larry, he was a quiet guy, but he was very nice. But I found out at the first place that let us in, Larry wasn't going to talk with anyone he didn't know. It just wasn't going to happen. So this nice man let us in. We sat down. He offered us something to drink, and we sat there. And I was a teenager, and Larry was the professional, so to speak. So I was waiting. The host was waiting as he sat, watching us. And Larry was silent, didn't say a word. So I said a couple of things, and finally the man himself that we were visiting engaged us. He stepped out of his comfort zone and asked what it was we were doing and how we were going about it. It was amazing that he did, but he did. And I just kept waiting for Larry to jump in, and he just sat there. So eventually I did what we had been trained by Ralph to do. I looked around and I saw some things the man had on display, kind of, and I asked about them. I think they were bowling trophies. And I said, "You like to bowl?" And he said, "I do. I've bowled for a long time." So I explained that I'd been on leagues for years. So we talked about bowling. Of course, I was in high school, so my bowling wasn't that good, but I had been on some leagues. And finally, I shared the gospel with him. And the dear man allowed us to pray with him. Larry was silent. He let me do it. He never spoke. And when we left, I said, "Larry, what's the matter with you?" And he said, "I just can't do that. But I knew I should, so I tried and I went with you." But he said I couldn't talk. So Larry was too quiet, too reserved. He couldn't do it. So when we got back to share how it went, everyone shared how it went, and most were closed doors or people not home. Ours was wondrously open. I remember Ralph shared this verse with us from Jude. "Be merciful to those who doubt. Snatch others from the fire and save them." That verse may have been about helping others in the faith and being gracious when believers doubt, as most do at some point. But right then, I saw it as pulling someone from the fire, sharing the gospel with someone who was aged or ill, and seeing them accept Christ. What a joy that was. The verse that best shows the lesson I learned from Ralph is this, 1 Peter 3:15. "Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." Some of those simple techniques Ralph taught me I've used again and again. because they're just ways to connect with people so you can share Jesus with them. Ralph put me in a kind of bad situation, and Larry was a disaster. He didn't help at all. But the reality is that Ralph shared truth with me to always be ready to share the gospel. Then he sent me into a situation where I had to do it. I relied on Larry and he didn't come through, so I had to do it. I will forever be grateful to him for one of the most uncomfortable evenings of my life. Oh, dear friends, always be ready to give an answer to those who ask, to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks for listening. God bless you.